Pathfic Lecture 191, Inner and Outer Experience, Week 4, which focuses on what feelings do you fear? I think in hindsight that this was a little bit of a gambit, and I'll explain that. Meaning to look at what feelings you fear is a way of going sideways and asking you to notice the feelings at all. When we don't feel our feelings, when we fear them, one of the ways to avoid feeling them is to avoid identifying them. So once they're not identified, then we're free. We don't have to feel them. Another way to avoid the process is to let them mount up until they're huge. Now, I'm going to give a real world example of what this looks like because the abstract can be a little mushy. When I was learning massage therapy, they taught me about muscle fibers and fascia. Fascia is spelled Fascia. Google it. And fascia is what encases, enwraps both muscle fibers, muscle groups, and muscles themselves. Fascia that works well can be observed in cats. They got great fascia. It just moves and ripples and allows them to do all kinds of things. Other mammals, including people, have a harder time with fascia. Our fascia gets sticky and stuck and doesn't move smoothly. So that's what hydration, one of the reasons to hydrate yourself is to actually hydrate the fascia. Now, the way it was explained to me was very visual and it got the point across very fast. They handed out packages of hot dogs to all the students and cellophane, and they invited us to take each hot dog and wrap it in cellophane, and then notice the flexibility. Now, notice it first, bare hot dog, raw hot dog, and then notice what happens when you roll it up in cellophane. And then you take the package of hot dogs and you roll them up, roll each one, 6 or so, and then you wrap them in cellophane. So now you've got a bundle. What they were teaching us is how each muscle fiber has a fascia wrapping and each bundle has a fascia wrapping. And of course, taking the bundle of 6 and trying to move them, because this is cellophane and we weren't, it's a silly way of learning this. The cellophane would stick to itself, and so the bundle was very solid. You couldn't really bend it very much. By the time you wrapped the entire package of 10 or 12 hot dogs, you couldn't practically bend it at all. It was stuck. What they were trying to illustrate is how the process of massage sometimes is about liberating muscle bundles and muscle fibers themselves and encouraging the flow of liquids between them so that they could do what they were designed to do, move freely and easily, individually and as a group. Now, I offer that to you as an analogy for feelings versus emotions. Emotions are 3 or 4 packages of hot dogs with no lubrication, all packaged together, and they're intended to become a block, a weapon to be thrown at people. That's the intention of doing that versus individual feelings that can be processed and felt and moved through and worked with. So, 2 examples, one of emotions and one of feelings. Envy, jealousy, hatred, unlovingness, desire for vengeance, desire for destruction. These do not self-generate instantaneously. They are made up of a host of feelings and experiences for which these emotions offer the phantom that there can be a release from them, that they can act out, that they can get justice, that they can get love, that they can grab the thing that we desire and just grab it and take it and hold on to it for ourselves instead of what? Instead of earning it, instead of allowing it to be given or not given, dependent on the imperfection of a certain system. So there's an intolerance for they won't do it right. They won't see me for who I am. That's very true in this world. And so instead of finding a group where you are seen and appreciated for who you are and what you can contribute, a group that you can contribute to, instead of idealistically believing you can contribute to, we wind up in the wrong place with the wrong group, and we still want the award. We still want the prize. So it's frustrating, and it can create a lot of anger, and that anger gangs up and it coheres with a lot of spiritual stuff and false beliefs and wishes to act out to break free. So those are all emotions. So the guide's examples were much smaller. Talked about sadness, for instance. And we'll focus on that because it was an example in the lecture. Sadness is easier to process. Now, if you have felt sad and you have processed through it, you have really felt it and accepted it and worked with it and found perhaps its source and addressed the source so it doesn't recreate or replicate, the sadness doesn't hang out, doesn't camp out in your being. Sadness that you can't get rid of is stuck sadness. What would make sadness stuck? Here's one example. By staying in sadness, we can stay away from grieving. What is grieving? Grieving is really grasping the reality of something that was lost or taken away or no longer possible. We don't want to do that. We don't want to go anywhere near the reality that we are going to have to soldier on this earth without this personality present in our lives. We don't want to accept that a goal we were attached to, that we desired, is no longer possible. And we can become sad to avoid the grieving, to avoid the reality that a false belief that we have cannot be manifested. And because we won't go there, we stay stuck in the beginning stages and the soft stages, which can gain us a lot of empathy and doesn't look as naughty as the grieving process or dismissal of reality, which can make us look unhinged or unreasonable. So we stay with, I'm just stuck with my feelings. And there's truth in that. But again, the question is, why are you stuck in your feelings? What is it about the feelings that makes you replicate and invite them and stay with them? What is that more comfortable than an alternative? Now, in other lectures, the guide talks about how feelings are messengers. I invite you to consider feelings are messengers. And sometimes you can have too many emails in your inbox. They may all be important, but there's way too many. And you just understand, I can't process this. So you move away. And you don't process that because you don't quite know how to handle, and you're going to have to sort all this information and fit it all together. And that can happen with ideas. You can be flooded with ideas and not be able to sort through or separate them. So you may sidestep them and put them aside and look for something simple. For instance, you look at all the news stuff about global stuff nowadays. And it's all the result of millions and millions of details that no one has a complete grasp of. And so we want to handle, we want a headline. We want to know this happened because of this. So we can put it in its compartment, in its box, so that our mind can comprehend it, so that we don't become flooded and overwhelmed. But I want to come back to feelings. Feelings are messages. They are messengers holding messages. We need to read the messages. When I work with people and a feeling comes up, I habitually want to stop and allow them to breathe for a few moments. Just breathe in and out. And they resist it. They resist it completely. They want to keep talking, and there's a push. I can get through this. But what's happening is they have something that they've already decided was important. And the feelings that come up and they don't want to integrate and they don't want to be in real time with, ooh, more information just came in. Gonna have to pause and edit and sort this out. They want to push through with what they already feel they know or are confident in expressing. And it takes time, and it can feel like time is in short supply. So when feelings come up, small amount, large amount, whatever, it is important to, if possible, take a moment. Now, the trick is that this, as a trick, makes it easier to do so that it doesn't take as much time as you think. The first few times, if you've got a backlog of feelings, like everybody's going to flesh through and you can become overwhelmed. You're going to have to practice this to become good at it, to sort through quickly and figure out what's going on. So I invite you to think of feelings as messengers, all holding a bit of a message, not necessarily what it means in total. Instead, we shoot the messenger. It's a famous Greek story. Yeah. Or we focus on something else. We decide to become distracted. For that, we have to take responsibility. But when you're in the feelings, it's not easy to see this as a choice. We can relate all the reasons why we are stuck, distracted, overwhelmed. So practicing this, it's important to do this on a small level before you get to the big stuff. Just like when you learned to read and write, you didn't start with the encyclopedia. You didn't start with writing essays. You started with learning the letters and how to form them. And number one, you memorized them so you knew what they were in the first place. And then you formed them. It was a lengthy process that most of us do not recall, done in between recess and lunch and other fun activities. That's what a lot of life is like. To be able to process feelings, you're going to have to do the equivalent of going back to kindergarten or the first grade and learn to color within the lines. And that can feel like you've just been shoved back into remedial work. It can feel like a demotion. It can feel listen to all the words that might come up. Instead of realizing that if we haven't learned to process the feelings, we're going to have to practice and learn how we avoid, how we shoot the messenger, how we jump to conclusions just to get out of the process. So, feelings as messengers, they carry messages. And what is all this about? My sense of what this is ultimately about is we don't want to know what's true. So we are afraid of the feelings because they will bring understanding and revelation. And then we'll see what is real. And then we will have to take responsibility for embracing reality, spiritual reality, or truth reality, and make decisions that we are responsible for. Instead, we want someone else to take responsibility or to dodge the responsibility. So in terms of sadness and grieving, let's go for somebody died that I was tremendously attached to, and I don't know how to live without them. I don't want to live without them. I don't want to deal with the consequences of them having gone. So I'm, to some extent, going to cloak their passing. And if I cloak the passing, then I don't have to deal with probate, being the executor, having to live my emotional life without this support, realizing that I was dependent on them to give me certain feelings and emotions that they're not going to be able to supply anymore. They didn't, but that's the illusion. And that I will have to be responsible for generating them on my own at this point. I'm going to have to stand on my own financial feet, my own life event feet, my own feeling feet. So that's, I think, what we're all trying to avoid. So let me flip back to envy as an example. When we envy someone, we see something, we want it, they've got it, it's wrong, and so should give it to me, not them. presumes we deserve it in the first place. If we did, why didn't we get it? To some extent, perhaps the prize was rigged. Perhaps it wasn't given to the most deserving person. Or we don't fit the criteria, and that's why we didn't get the prize. Now, can the criteria be unfair? Yes, it can be, but that's the game that is played. My joke in my family was about corporate America. I don't fit. I didn't know how to, I don't fit in corporate America. So I made my business career in private industry where I could be more relaxed and be more me. Um, my mom never understood my success in the business world because I never wore a suit. And she developed this fixation that if I would just wear a suit, I would be successful, instead of seeing that I was successful in a field that didn't require a suit. Envy and jealousy are a desire to shortcut a process or change it or get something we don't deserve instead of doing the work to deserve what is rightfully ours. Now, the argument is I have to conform to fit. Well, those are the criteria for certain kinds of prizes. And we don't want to admit the reality of that either. We don't want to admit that it's just plain unfair. We don't want to admit that our values don't align. And to some extent, we don't want that prize. I don't want the corporate prize. And it shows up as my not wanting to conform in wanting, it showed up, past tense. It showed up as my not wanting to conform to a dress code that would have allowed me access to that world. By protesting the world, I don't come to grips with my own desires and my own belief systems, my own values, and it blocks off an avenue that I could take, that I did take, just as an example. So, all those trying to support what feelings do you fear, to take a look at them. Now, before I used the example this week in meetings, I used the example of the hoop of fire. Fearing a feeling is like fearing taking a candle flame and running your finger back and forth. When you're a kid and you learn that trick, you don't do it because you aren't sure that it's true and you don't want to get hurt. And some of us learn easily that it doesn't hurt. And some of us are hesitant. And if we're hesitant, we're going to get burned. And now we're convinced it can't be done. I can't do it. Instead of realizing that we didn't understand the mechanism. We didn't understand the reality of the candle flame, that it hurts if you're there for a significant period of time. In the circuses, at least when I was a kid, it was a big deal about the lion jumping through the hoop of flame. Well, it's really no different than a candle flame, and the animals are trained in very short increments, very brief increments to understand that so that they aren't overwhelmed. They know the game. They know that if they do it, they'll jump through and they won't feel pain. So I'll do it because otherwise you'll whip me, or you won't feed me, or you won't pet me or love me. And we jump through it. Feelings, there's not a reason to fear feelings. And that's why I looked for what are we afraid of? And that's where my conclusion was, we're afraid that if we feel the feelings, we will process them and they will settle down and we will see something else. And there's something else that we don't want to see. So one more week on this, week 5, but for now, that's it. Thanks for listening. Appreciate your reading the lecture, Pathway Lecture 191, Inner and Outer Experience.